Good.
Yep.
So what my refutation is what my opponent claim was is teaching groups in elementary schools negatively affect children, and to this I say that it's wrong because in my opponent's first secondary claim, teaching groups make it known to the class who is at what level. Lower groups are working on basics concepts while higher level groups work on their own. And to this I say that according to the National Education Association, the ability of teachers to adjust the pace of instructions for student needs as a strength shows that they want to they're putting these children into groups in order for them to go at their own pace. Say, because you say in mathematics, the concepts build directly on the previous learned material. It can be frustrating and non-productive experience for children who have not yet mastered one area and are rushed onto the next concept. So at this point, they're being rushed into learning something they don't know. Then that makes more frustration to build up until they could no longer keep up with the material and stop trying. So that's why the teaching groups are actually beneficial, to my opponent's first secondary claim. And also the secondary claim that my opponent made was teaching groups result in poor behavior from lower level students. Heather Forbes in her book For Billy discusses such behavior in such students and potential causes as their learning styles in schools, such as styles including learning groups, which in this I use the evidence of analysis data collected by the government's National Assessment of Education Progress that shows that fourth grade teachers surveyed, 71% said they had group students by reading abilities in 2009 up to 28% since 1998. And from why 1998 is very significant is where they stopped using teaching groups, because they mainly saw it as a way for teachers to put minorities and racially discriminate them. But however, now the times have changed from where learning groups are actually needed, since more teachers are using disability more and more, and the poor behavior is not directly caused from the learning groups, because in the evidence that I got in studies at the University of Tennessee Valued Added Research and Assessment Center, is they're talking about the importance of teachers' effectiveness on the student. So from this, I'm connecting that it's not how the teachers are actually using the learning groups. It's actually how they're enforcing it. Someone to say how each student would perform. Because if you get a high value, high performing teacher, they're able to teach the student better than say a low performing teacher, which is what they did in the study. They used 2 third graders students, which they have similar abilities and results in their academics, and for 2 years until they reached the 5th grade, the student who was placed with a high performing teacher placed in the 96th percentile in mathematics, compared to the other student who was placed in the 44th percentile in the Tennessee statewide mathematics assessment. So they're saying that it's not really the learning groups, not the learning group's fault, but the teachers instead, who are not giving the students the proper education that they are needed. And from this, the teaching groups in elementary schools are not actually negative towards students, but actually beneficial for them to learn more.
Well, you identified the main proposition. I didn't think the secondary claims were very clearly laid out, and in the course of the argument, I didn't really hear distinctive claims on your part. I heard a lot of evidence. Sometimes you're letting the evidence try to make the argument for you, and I think that that's a little bit problematic. It sounds to me like your argument comes down to this. Learning groups can be useful, that the teachers are probably the most important part of the process, and that different learning styles sometimes require the ability of teachers to make kinds of adjustments. Not necessarily in that order, but that sounds like the claims that you're making here. The problem is that they're kind of hidden in some of this description of what's going on, and I think you need to be a little bit more effective and direct at making your claim. Sometimes the presentation hurts a little bit because there's a lot of reading and not a lot of eye contact. Sometimes the evidence that the advocate is presenting is not being responded to as directly as it could, and sometimes the evidence that you present is a little bit unclear. I wasn't sure the point that you were trying to make about the 1998 change in the way that the groups were being utilized was, and it sounded like an assertion, and even then, I'm not sure, once you've made the assertion, what the point of that argument was. I think that it seems to go off on a tangent that never really gets developed. The last argument, though, about teacher effectiveness, I thought that was a little bit clearer, that in essence it suggests that it's the teacher that has the greatest impact on the student, and that as long as the kids are getting the right kind of teacher for themselves, the group issue seems to be a little bit less important. And that, I think, is a good argument to finish with, because that gives you at least something coherent to hang on to. If we were having this as a debate, whether or not we should continue to use learning groups in the classrooms, I think you'd have at least a good, solid summary argument there. All right, thank you.